Joining us live now via Zoom is Mrs. Navika Kumar. Do we have the link live? An extremely familiar face to whom we are grateful for her presence here today. Ms. Navika Kumar is Group Editor, Times Network, and Editor-in-Chief of Times Now, Navbharat. Welcome. A versatile and transformative news personality with over 3 decades of experience, one who is definitely a name to reckon with within news broadcasting in India. She spent 15 years of her early journalistic career in the print media with Economic Times and the Indian Express. She switched to television in 2006 and was part of the founding team at Times Now, today India's #1 English news channel. A firebrand news anchor with extensive knowledge of current affairs, politics and business, Mrs. Navika Kumar anchors the primetime show, The News Hour, at 9 p.m. and the popular interview format show, Frankly Speaking, on Times Now, and also the show Sawal Public Ka on Times Now, Navbharat, at 8 p.m. every night. Both these shows collectively probably draw eyeballs similar, if not more than Kaun Banega Crorepati, I think. So it's a very popular show. So yes, a hand of applause. With stellar journalistic credentials, Mrs. Kumar is amongst the few journalists who have left their imprint in both political as well as in business reporting, credited with investigating and breaking high-impact stories and being recognized with the Prem Bhatia Memorial Trust Award in 2006 for her exemplary political reportage and ENBA awards for Best Anchor. We look forward to Ms. Navika Kumar's address on Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam in media. Thank you so much for being with us. Navikaji, can you hear me clearly? Yes, if that might be convenient for you, yes. Yes, welcome. Good afternoon.
Thank you so much for having me. And after those profound words from Anand Goenka, it's a very difficult task that you've left for me to try and take the conversation forward from where he left off. Let me tell you, I learned at the best. I spent 10 years at the Indian Express, so I have no difference of opinion from what Anand Goenka says about work that is happening at the Indian Express and has happened. Maybe he was just coming in when I was leaving Indian Express, but I must tell you, Anand, there were stories that really I would hold very close to my heart, and these are stories probably I will tell my grandchildren and possibly, if I'm lucky enough, my great-grandchildren. And one of them very, very close to my heart was when I did a story, and I used to cover in those days the telecom sector. And I did a story where the MTNL cell phones were just coming in and they were a novelty in our lives. This is around 2000. It was 16 rupees a minute to talk to anybody. And we had those large phones. And because I covered telecom, I sort of came across a file which had justified that MTNL should give free phones to the 26 judges of the Supreme Court of India. In return for the antenna that they had put on the Supreme Court terrace. And there was this to and fro of letters between the registrar office and MTNL. And MTNL had, at that time, used a justification that many of our cases are going on in Supreme Court, and this would be a nice marketing exercise. So free cell phones and free airtime should be given to the judges. And, it was done, approved. And then it was also, got by these Supreme Court judges, and the registrar had agreed for it. And when I came across that file, I went straight to office, and we had a very senior team sitting there. And the first response was, Navika, not just one or two, you've got 26 judges of the Supreme Court on the mat, and you expect us to carry this in the Indian Express. And I said, it's a story, it's a bona fide story. I've got evidence for it. And that's the way we work stories in the Indian Express. And they said, and what happens if it is seen as contempt of court? Um, and, over the next couple of days, while the story was being studied from every angle, the conversation was that my editor and I would be sitting in jail. And, who would be on the roster duty to bring us khana every day, home cooked khana, if we got permission for that. But I'm just saying the rigor of the Indian Express was that that story was at that time sent to Mr. Fali Nariman for legal advice on uh, what would we be as an organization liable for. Just in case the Supreme Court did not take it in the spirit that we were doing the story. And when that legal advice came, it was stated that we are good to go. It is not contempt of court. We are only raising the point that the Supreme Court of India's building belongs to what is called the Government of India or the Consolidated Fund of India. And it is from there that their salaries and perks are drawn. So anything extra is certainly not without an okay or without a parliamentary procedure okay for Supreme Court to do. And at that time, we were promoting the Sunday Express, which was a new product that had been launched. And I still remember the 8-column flyer story that was carried with a headline, "Hello, Your Lordships." And the story appeared with the rigor that it needed to go through. And it did appear, and the organization stood up for it. And the next morning, all the 26 Supreme Court judges returned their phones, saying that they did not know the background. So, well, yes, journalism of courage is a school I went to in the earlier part of my career. But during that time, a very funny thing happened, an incident that probably was to change the course of my life, which was that a new channel was being set up called Times Now. And for 3 or 4 months, they just kept calling me that, we want to bring serious journalism to television. And, we've zeroed in on you and please join us. And I would keep avoiding their calls, saying that I was so happy at the Indian Express, plus a print job for women like us is extremely, extremely comfortable because it gives us the space to do the work that we want to do and sometimes also to balance our home lives, especially because I had a very young son at that time who had come 10 years after my first one. So I needed to devote time to him and I was just not keen on a television job. But just the fact that this went on for about 4 months, and they once caught me when I was traveling to Australia. And in those days, roaming call prices were very high, and newspapers didn't pay for it in those days. Television always did. But, because you have young kids at home, you travel with a cell phone if it's possible. And just to cut a long conversation short, I said, okay, when I come back to Delhi, I'll meet them. And that changed the course of my life because I just felt that there was a new medium that was taking root in our lifetimes. And if there was something that I needed to learn more than I needed to teach, then it was worth a try. If I didn't last, the story in the Indian Express was, Anant, you weren't there, so I won't ask you to, acknowledge it, but ask Raj Kamal Jha and ask Unni. They'll tell you how much I cried when I put in my papers. But I was just taken in with this new medium, which was beckoning me. And I wanted to try it because it was just in a lifetime, how many people get the chance to try 2 mediums to work on. So I thought I'll go for a lark, last there for probably 6 months or 9 months or 1 year and come back. I was told it won't be more than 3 months. Here I am on the cusp of completing 18 years with Times Now. And we did start with some of those stories. to me, the major ambition I had and the major goal that I had was in the area that I covered, economics and politics. Politics really flowing out of the economics, was that there was a lot of power in our corridors of power, but there wasn't enough accountability. And it was this theme that virtually became a passion with me. And this is the theme I started with. And I always believe this, and I think that is the Indianness in us, that I had the blessing somewhere from the power up there. Bhagwan kahi saath tha. And the stories that I stumbled across and the stories that I worked on very well. And Office of Prophet was my first big story when Times Now was launched. And I broke the story of Jaya Bachchan resigning, and then, of course, the big one, Sonia Gandhi resigning, because she had an Office of Prophet. And that's what kickstarted my profession in journalism. I'm really sorry about this. Oops. Terrible, you know, when the not the right generation sort of gets into virtual meetings. Sorry about that. I apologize to each one of you. But I just want to say that's where my journey in television started. And then there were many other stories. The point I'm trying to make is that we live in times where there is a competitive environment within the media, and everybody has to try and tell their story in the best way they can get the attention of people. And we've been talking about, how people try to grab attention. Yes, we try to grab attention as well, because television is a field where attention grabbing is mapped minute to minute. It is unlike newspapers, not once in a year, not once in 6 months, not in a quarter. It is every Thursday morning we get our ratings, and we have to account for every single minute from 6 a.m. to 12 midnight. Everything is recorded, and that's the game of TRP that is being played. And yes, it's brought in a lot of competition. It's brought in a lot of erosion of quality, because television is extremely immediate. In digital, in newspaper, print, you can write something that but in television we have an added problem of getting the visual, because it's an audio visual medium. And not just that, when I speak, I have to make the person who's watching television to be interested in reading me. They just do not switch on Times Now and stay on Times Now or Times Now Navbharat because we have a legacy. I have to make it interesting for them every minute that the person stays on the channel. Otherwise, the biggest enemy we have is the remote control. They'll switch on elsewhere. And it's so fast. In a second, switch off a button on your remote and our work goes down the tube. So that, is the challenge that we in television are currently facing. To say that it's always been like this would, I think, be, attaching a stereotypical image of the audiovisual medium or the television media.
Recording in progress.
And my only point at this moment is to try and convince you that it takes a lot of work. I'm not saying print journalists don't work. It's just that we have to work a little harder, because we have to put it onto a digital medium. We have to put it on a television medium. We have to put it on social media. And things like that make it way more challenging for us. To say that Vasudevam Kutumbakam is something that we all ought to be doing. True, uh, as a goal, absolutely certain. But within the media, forget Vasudevam, within Indian media, there is the English space, there is the Hindi space, there is the regional space, and everybody, there are about 850 channels, television channels in India. And each one of them is trying to grab a slice of that limited pie. And that is where, competition and sometimes stab in the back competition is what we see in this medium. But some of us who have seen we've been through the print training and have come to television, do try to bring in a semblance of order, a semblance of maturity, but the yardsticks by which we all are measured are terribly limiting. However, the deep faith that we have in just the power of the Indian people is that we will never be silenced. You can buy one, you can buy two, you can silence one, you can silence two, you can take away the right of one, you can take away the right of two, but you cannot take away the right and the freedom of speech of 1.4 billion people. And today, I feel that media is not limited to the professional media that you see. There is a whole lot that is happening on social media. And I feel everybody uh, is a wannabe or a make-believe journalist out there who thinks he or she is actually somebody who has all the khabar. And those are the times that we are living in. Having said, and they are not, you know, accountable to any of the checks and balances that some of us are. We are hauled in by the courts, by, we have our own regulatory bodies. I'm not saying that audiovisual medium, the television medium, does not make mistakes. It does, because speed is, the karma that drives us. And sometimes in that speed, you may make a mistake. The problem is, do we acknowledge our mistakes? Do we correct our mistakes? That is where we should be judged, number one. And we live in a very, very opinionated country. Everybody has not one, but 10 opinions about one issue. And in such an opinionated country, there is terminology which is called paid media, bought media, Godi media, North Korean media, all kinds of names. I mean, if anybody would care to go to my Twitter handle, you would only see abuses. I've stopped going there because why to have negative energy in my brains? I would rather direct it towards positive energy and do the work that I set out to do, which is A, inform the viewer, and B, power and accountability need to go hand in hand. And that is the quest that we are on. Yes, polarization, as Anant Goenka mentioned, is the name of the game. But then polarization doesn't come from one strata of the society. We are all polarized. If you sit here and today put the cameras off and just have 5 people on a round table to discuss issue X, you will hear such polarized views and opinions that it would be mind-boggling. So, and more information, at our fingertips, sometimes half-baked information, sometimes on the surface information, doesn't stop us from jumping to conclusions and making up our minds. That is the time that we live in. Within all of that, to continue to be responsible, to continue to be engaging, to continue to just survive is a challenge. And it is the same across the world. I'm sure the challenges exist for media from their own people within their own spaces. But somewhere I do see that the Western media is biased towards the way they look at India. For them, we're probably somewhere still a country where elephants walk on the road, snake charmers are on the sides of the streets, and we are all, illiterate. We don't know how to make our decisions. We just go because we are just so many of us. We just go this way or that in hordes, and we don't have a shred of intelligence in our minds. That is perhaps the impression that is being created. And that I have a problem with, and we express it. In fact, it will be nice for you to hear that within the media space, there is an expression that is spoken about all the time, which is liberal media, the liberal intellectuals, and then there is the Godi media. Godi media, please read Modi followers. People who think Modi is doing a nice job are called Godi media. And those who criticize him are the intellectuals. Now, there I have a problem with the classification. I have personally felt, maybe I was a younger reporter in the days that I was in the Express and the governments of that time that I covered. But there were a few barriers, entry barriers that were there, because you didn't come from a strata of society, a particular university, a particular background, from the bureaucracy or from the political class or from what is called HS, high society. So there were entry barriers for such people. I felt it in the past. I'm not going to name any dispensation, but yes, I felt it in the past. About the new India, I'm proud of the new India. I'm not saying everything is perfect and everything is good. But in the new India, everybody has the right to express themselves. So when there is this freedom of speech debate, sometimes I feel, if anybody was to switch on a television of a private network in India, freedom of speech being curtailed, oh my God, you wish it were, because every panelist is screaming over the other and you can't hear anybody. Where is there danger to freedom of speech? I often wonder about this. And sometimes I just feel that we blow it out of proportion, because it is the change that is taking place between a world that was, for lack of a better word, not as privileged as those who held the sway in the past. They come from, maybe they don't have enough polish, maybe they don't have enough uh, good manner to put their things, but there is this tectonic shift that is taking place, and this is taking place across the world. We all will say what we have to say, but we will keep the ideals and the objectives of what media is here to do, which is the job of the watchdog. And believe you me, not one of us in the media will let go of that goal and will let go of that bottom line that is just so close to our hearts. I could go on forever, because being an anchor, a 1 hour show is sometimes short to conclude the debate. And without any bells ringing, I could just go on forever. But I'll rest my thoughts here. We need to give each other a chance is the only request I would make. We should not be opinionated before we've heard the other side. We should just have an open mind, and maybe we'll bridge the barriers between this world of the intellectuals and that world of people on the streets, because it is our job to bridge that gap. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.